2 tankers. $130 million in crude. Gone before sunrise. You're about to see how a 1.6-second radar glitch cracked a defended coastline in the Black Sea. We'll break down the moment Ukraine waited for Russian crews to relax, then slipped 4 sea drones through Podsilnuk's clutter recalibration gap while 24 decoys pulled Raptor boats and Ka-27s away. If you've ever asked how deception beats armor, stay. The payoff, a precise, step-by-step look at exploiting a blind spot to bypass layered defenses and trigger a financial kill chain that shook insurers and shadow fleets worldwide. Before we move on, I'd like to ask you a small favor. If you appreciate this content, please take a second to like this video and subscribe to the channel. Over 98% of you watch the videos without subscribing. It costs you nothing, but it makes a huge difference to us. So, did you click the subscribe button? Great! Thank you so much. Now, back to the video. Why did 4 small boats run at a defended coast? Because the wall looked perfect from a distance. Up close, you could read the seams. Start with the stack. The Podsilnuk over-the-horizon radar casts a wide net across the sea, sensing movement far past the horizon line. Raptor-class patrol boats sit inside that net, engines warm, built for sprint and intercept runs. Ka-27 helicopters hover in the plan as airborne eyes and fast-acting muscle, and the shoreline ties it all together with cameras, signals teams, and a playbook that rewards speed. On paper, that stops surface threats early. A net like that lives to swat noisy swarms before they form. But the same net can misread 4 disciplined hulls trimmed low in the water, timed against its own maintenance rhythm. The larger the coverage, the harder it is to hold clean tracks on small targets when the sea gets busy. Night adds noise. Chop adds more. Podsilnuk works like a wide-area flashlight that trades sharp focus for reach. It stretches far, but it has to sift waves from wakes, birds from boats, and it does that with constant filtering to cut down false alarms. That filtering eases up and resets in cycles, especially when conditions shift. In those moments, small radar signatures can sit inside sea clutter and not look like threats. Here's the intercept chain when the system bites. Radar spots a contact and throws a cue. Operators assign vectors. Raptors surge out along the bearing. Aircrew spool the Ka-27s, link in with the plot, and carve the water into fire sectors: who shoots where, who blocks, who corrals anything that slips the first choke point. It's fast. It's loud. It's meant to be decisive. But then comes the human part. You can think of the goalie who covers the whole net but lifts a glove for 1 second to wipe sweat. If your shot is already moving, it is past him by the time the glove comes back down. Wide coverage demands that moment. Precision suffers to keep reach. Expectation shaped the watch floor. Prior attacks leaned on a known drone profile, think MAVA 6.5 style signatures and familiar frequencies. Crews tuned their filters, their ears, and their alert habits to that memory. Radios sat keyed to those tones. Logs flagged those shapes. When operators saw those notes, they acted at once. When they did not, they waited for stronger cues. All of this sat under a prize worth protecting. 2 tankers ran AIS dark, hauling crude inside that umbrella. A shadow supply line treated that zone like a safe lane. Fuel moves money. Money buys time. Those hulls paid for risk, and the defense stack existed to guard that bet from cheap threats with short range and loud footprints. Here is where the shield showed strain. It punished the noise it expected and let the quiet pass through when the system blinked. The first crack never came from a hit. It came from a procedure: how often a filter settles, how crews confirm clutter, how assets launch on the cues they trust while they screen out the ones they don't. Now, you might ask, why drive small boats into that? Because the math on the seams mattered more than the metal on the ramp. If you can pin down the rhythm of the sweep, the dip in the filters, and the human urge to chase what looks familiar, you can set a clock and ride it. So how do you turn a 6-second sweep and a habit into a door? You break down the radar's heartbeat until the blind seconds line up with your route, then you move before the glove comes back up. You model the blind seconds. Then you ride them. Months of study for a 1.6-second door sounds absurd until you see what that sliver buys under a hard sky and choppy water. Analysts pulled a long thread. They sifted Planet Labs passes for antenna shadows and maintenance footprints. They matched leaked emission notes to how a Potselnuck site breathes under load. Then they built a 3D model of the array, the mast height, the shoreline, and the sea state bands that most often forced recalibration. The pattern held, a 1.2 to 1.6 second dip when transmission power stepped down, the beam slipped slightly out of phase, and filters reset to tame clutter. Not a blackout. A blink. Knowing it exists is not the win. You have to meet that beat from sea level. At night. With 4 small hulls that can't be late by a single wave cycle. That means tight engine maps, fixed throttle gates, and a human in the loop who will not chase speed when spray hits the lens. The clock runs them, not the other way around. Here's the math you live with. Approach speed has to harmonize with the sweep cycle so the hull crosses a lobe edge as the filter softens. Angle matters, you ride the lobed shoulder, where gain is weakest, not the center where it's clean. Sea state sets your ceiling because whitecaps raise the clutter threshold and let low radar cross-section boats hide in the noise, but those same waves cost speed and add pitch you must damp with ballast and trim tabs. The launch time backdates from the expected dip, minus transit, plus a cushion for currents that push you off axis. You sync to the radar's heartbeat. Now the feint. 24 surface craft light up the ether with a known shape, older MAVA 6.5 style signatures, pushing the same frequencies and modulation crews keyed to in prior raids. They throw heat like small engines. They talk in the patterns the logs expect. They surge, split, and zig at set intervals. One purpose, give defenders a swarm they can believe in. That works because people fight what they can see and hear. The largest, loudest plot owns the net. Operators vector Raptors and spin Ka-27s toward the noise. The loud picture gets assets. The quiet path gets time. You don't beat the shield head-on. You feed it exactly what it trained to kill. A decoy finally breaches the visual. It clatters in the scope of a patrol boat. Tracers crack. Water kicks. The craft keeps broadcasting, bleeding all the right notes. Radios fill with bearings and speed calls. The real drones are not there. They are already past the first ring, sliding along the low-gain edge with throttles pinned to a narrow band that keeps wake and radar return small. Meanwhile, the escorts around the tankers thin. Response groups lean hard into the feint. The next recalibration window floats into place on the strike axis, and the sea gives a small gift, enough chop to raise clutter, not enough to swamp a low hull trimmed right. You can feel the lane open even if you can't see it. Payoff 1, that 1.6-second vulnerability came from long-run analysis of sweep behavior, checked by 3D site modeling and cross-referenced open-source signals. Payoff 2, the recalibration cycle was decisive because it created predictable microgaps where low RCS USVs, throttled and angled with care, merged with sea noise and stopped looking like threats. With the shield staring at a ghost and the clock on their side, the 4 strike hulls crossed the line. The radio net is still arguing about the decoy headings when the quiet hulls reach the tanker's shadow and lock their final run. Sea control fails in a heartbeat. Not from brute force, but from a mapped second and a half where sensors blink and humans commit. That's the margin that turns steel walls into doors. If you want more deep dives into how timing, signatures, and deception beat armor, subscribe and tell me, would you invest in more decoys or better jammers first? Comment your choice below. Your vote shapes which tools we dissect next, from spoofing suites to low RCS hull tricks. Next time, we'll pull apart the post-strike financial kill chain, how 2 fires at sea rattled global insurance overnight. Underwriters moved. Routes shifted. And a quiet market learned to flinch.